Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Inside Scoop with Alex and Jeff. I'm Alex Newman.
I'm Jeff Doss. How's everybody doing? I hope you guys are doing great. Welcome to another episode. And man, we got a big one.
Any episode.
It's episode 100. It's going to be awesome. And guys, remember, we are sponsored by Virtual Fight Tour. They have lots of big things coming up to finish off July, August. And, we are all excited to, hear what's next, right?
Right.
I've heard, we heard on CTE that they're going to have something maybe at a tournament near you. And I've heard some other, maybe at a night show or something like that. So
yeah, I think that was it was like a finals. It didn't necessarily say night show. It just said it at finals.
Right. So pretty exciting. So get ready, guys. Go check out Virtual Fight Tour. And, when the next one comes out, we'll be sharing it. But let's get to our show, man. We got Trevor and Casey Nash.
None other than them. Two absolute icons. And if there was a Hall of Fame, we should make one. They'd be first ballot Hall of Famers. Each of them, you could just take any one of their eras that they've had over their dynasty that they've created, and they would be a first ballot Hall of Famer just for that alone. Welcome, Casey. Welcome, Trevor. Thanks for coming on the pod.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so at one point, sometimes Casey's internet's just like a little bit delayed. So what we're going to do is if Casey just chimes in, we're going to shut what they call the heck up. So we'll do that. And then let's jump right into it, Jeff. Jeff, I think you wanted to start us off with something.
Yeah. So I want to know about the school. So you guys run United Family Martial Arts for a while now, really since you guys have been together. So almost. And so tell us about that, the legacy of it, and also what it's like working together, and being two high profile people in the sport and working together.
Okay. Well, history of it. I took over United Family Martial Arts when I was 18. There was the one school, took it over from Jim Flood, started running it about maybe 2.5 years into it. We started opening up separate schools from that point there, and we built up to having 8 schools now part of our franchise, which is awesome. Yeah. Casey's been a huge part of that process. Working together to touch base on something like that, she is definitely the person that keeps me focused on task. Like, she is the back end for me. I love teaching. I love being on the floor. The backside business side of it, that was definitely a lot more of Casey's area. She does all the back end, but not just, she still teaches and all that stuff too. Working together it's been interesting. I mean, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I mean, there's been, great things where she keeps me focused and keeps me on track of what needs to be done. But then there's other things where we butt heads. It is what it is,
Right.
I guess, been doing it for many decades now, running it, right?
Yeah, I'd say like over 20 years now, right?
Yeah. So it's been a long time, and way more good than bad, obviously, with it. The COVID stuff's been a real change for us up here in Canada, right? Like, we're still not able to teach classes. Like, we're still not running classes up here. We get to start. Yeah, we get to start classes this coming Monday, and it's at 50% capacity. So we're still only maybe 15 kids on the floor max.
Yeah.
So it's this year's been interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, and Casey, chime in, whatever, even if we're talking about that, what you think about that as well.
Okay, so you say you're at 50% capacity. Do you have any other limits? Because it kind of sounds like, all right, we were there like 8 months ago. So it's not it's not like the rest of the continental U.S. is.
We can't have contact, so we're not sparring. We can't do self-defense because we can't have contact. So the only thing we're really doing is our katas and our techniques. So it becomes. I'll be honest with you. We've been doing the online Zoom stuff. And it's definitely making all my instructors, and it's made me a better teacher because it's definitely a different way of teaching.
Yep.
But at the end of the day, I love sparring, and I haven't been able to do it. And even though I'll say it, like, I've been doing some private with some of my higher end guys that compete and stuff like that. But the problem with that is we can't get across the border, so we still can't compete. All my high end guys, we can't get across the border. So their level of effort And I don't blame them. You can't train for a year and a half and not have something to do. Right?
Do
You can't
with
gauge yourself.
with no carrot to dangle.
Exactly.
Wow.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So it's been different up here.
All right. Well, so that's kind of where you guys are at now. Let's circle back to that, but I want to get a little bit more, and Jeff, stop me if you want to go in a different direction. I want to get us off on how the heck do we know about Casey, Mark's now Nash, Trevor Nash? Really, where I got a chance to see you guys, I was already, and we're similar age, and I was already like, damn, I'm seeing you guys both in finals when I'm seeing you guys for the first time. Obviously, Jeff knows everything about martial arts, so Jeff probably saw you guys when you guys were blue belts because that's just Jeff. Really, what was it like? And Casey, as you hear this, if there's a delay, just chime in and we'll listen to where you're at with that. But I remember, Trevor, seeing where you were at for the first time. You had already hit like the Team Elite days, and I had heard about this massive like rivalry, or not a rivalry, but there was this match between you and Jason Borelli, where Mike Conroy saw the both of you guys, and he's like, I'm making a team. The hell with it. I want both of those guys. Come to find out later that you were injured during that fight. Tell me a little bit about that point and even before that.
That was Super Grands of Niagara Falls, 99. Yep.
That's what I heard.
See, you guys are gonna remember things that I don't even remember.
Yeah,
so that's gonna be bad on my side of it, right? So fighting Jason, I grew up fighting Jason, and I grew up fighting Raymond all the time too, right? So we had, as juniors, as kids, we had a lot of interaction. And I'm sure you guys know it better, or see it, I should say. I can't be friends with somebody that I've got to go fight, right? So I had a hard time having that social interaction with people. And, fighting Jason, I couldn't be friends with him. But when we became part of the team on Elite, there was a huge change and a huge barrier there. So I was able to learn at that point, and I think I was, 17, maybe 18 at that point. I was able to learn how to cope with both sides of that, having a relationship with Jason, or having a relationship with some of the other fighters, because Renee was on the team at that time, and he was one of the, I thought Renee was always a great fighter at that point. So he was another tough person for me, being a heavyweight, and I had to always meet him either in division or in heavyweight grands and stuff like that. So it was a neat learning experience for me. Growing up as a kid, I started competing when I was 6. So, and I always traveled by myself. I didn't have a support team behind me. So when I got on Team Elite, that was an amazing change for me. And I think it took me from a different level of ability too, because I was able to listen to different people. I still to this day say, probably Mike Conroy's been the best coach I've ever had, fighting wise, hands down. And for me, I say that for me, because he was always able to get me motivated. He was always able to get me back focused again. He was always able to tell me what I needed to do to make an adaptation, where other coaches weren't necessarily able to do that. I'm not going to say names and stuff like that, but like type D doesn't work for me. So. Yeah.
Awesome. So Casey, we're going to pause and just let you answer this one. So, tell us your background. I'm knowing you because you live the next state below me. So just tell us your background, who's your instructor, and just kind of the process to get to John Paul Mitchell.
Well, there was a whole lot that came before JPM for me. I started so I started just before I turned 10, and I lucked out because the gentleman that we started training with was Roger Jones, and he actually ran a NASCA national event in Charlotte. So that was kind of what got us kickstarted, because that was actually the first event we ever went to. I think we were yellow belts, or maybe didn't even grade yet, and got to see some of these guys on stage. So I remember seeing Mike Bernardo there for the first time and deciding with my mom that that's kind of what I wanted to do. And my parents were 100% on board with, well, same as your parents, right? Like going, okay, if this is what you want, this is where we're going to get you. So starting off, we took 2 years as underbelt. competing on NASCA and doing, well, same as Jeff, doing like all those little small circuits through the Carolinas and Tennessee and Kentucky. And we lucked out that we were close enough to be able to drive to pretty much every event. Like, I don't know, Jeff would probably know how many flipping tournaments there are in that area. And then in 94, got picked up on Metro. So that was a big thing for us. It was hard because unlike Paul Mitchell, where for the most part with JPM, pardon?
They had a big team, is what you're saying. They're a huge team.
I don't know what he said. It's okay.
Yeah,
it was huge. Like for Paul Mitchell, on the most part, we had one competitor per division. So you had to hold your own, right? And they didn't tend to pit us against each other. Whereas Metro was the opposite. Like, I remember there being years where there were 5 of us in the same division. I remember having coach against me, which was really awkward and kind of like he would look and go, okay, well, which one's all right, I want to coach you. And you're like, crap. Like, so that was hard. But the divisions were different too, right? Like now, and I know it'll come up with you guys, but the divisions were totally different. Like you couldn't do 100 divisions a tournament. You got 3. You could do forms, weapons, sparring, and that was it. So we were it was stacked. 15 and 17 was horrible. But yeah, so then when Metro fell apart, we had a 6-month window there where we were kind of coasting, and then got the invite from Paul Mitchell. I think there were several of us that year that from Metro got picked up on JPM, and that was a lot different. Just a different dynamic, smaller team. I don't know, just different feel, right? Like, I mean, you're back to being the new kid on the block, which is okay. I will definitely give a shout out to some of the guys though, like Reggie Perry and Dee Dee and those guys. They were one of the first people that kind of said, hey, as a new person, you're ours. Like, we will take care of you. Whatever you need, we're here. Kind of like that big brother mentality. So that really brought the family aspect into it. And Coach Rodriguez from the get-go was amazing. Same with Chris, like just phenomenal. And then that's pretty much where I feel I've been ever since. I mean, I'm not actively competing, so I'm not considered an active team member, but I don't think, and I've had this conversation with a couple people over the years, I don't think I could ever wear a different sponsor's uniform, other than our club uniform, of course, which proudly represent Team United. But yeah, that's pretty much where we started out. And I think, we met, it was still Elite at the time before it went over to CJB. So it was kind of around that time, with your mom being the main woman on that team, which, holy crap. Like, I think of all the teams I've interacted with, she has been by far the best manager ever. So kudos to your mom for sure.
I still love Mama Dog. She's awesome.
Yes, she did a great job. Mike P asked, what's Butch up to?
You'd have to ask him. I don't get to talk to him as much as I would like. But he's with American Top Team in Asheville. So he's still highly pursuing jiu-jitsu. That has always been his first love ever since he got introduced to it. And I guess that would have been 95. He started doing jiu-jitsu. And I think that's really what kind of turned him away from sport card. It was like, it's just a different beast. And for him, that just 100% clicked. And he is at home on that mat and phenomenal at it. So, but yeah, he's teaching in Asheville. Let's we'll leave that.
Awesome. Yeah. I would just share, for me, like the first people that sought me out or even just befriended me on the circuit were you and Butch. And so for me, like, as far as when I first turned black belt, you guys were the first two. It was at a tournament in Florida, the Gulf Coast Open. And like, from there, we've just always had that connection. And, it's crazy. But I'll never, like, I tell everyone, like, that's what helped me stay into it, and feel comfortable about it. So as a new person, it could be a little tough sometimes when you don't know everybody. Right. And when those first people do that, reach out to you. And then you find out that they're maybe 3 hours away from you and you can visit and train together and stuff like that. It's pretty awesome. So always a big thank you to you guys for that. Yeah, I know we're pausing.
Is it bad that in those years I remember your brother a bit more than I do?
Yeah,
You?
it's okay.
Like Cord used to be at my ring. No, Cord used to be at my ring at every tournament. And I think we have a couple pictures of all of us together. But not to give too much. I used to have like good luck charms and stuff that I would bring to tournaments, and Cord would always run up and be like, "I got them." So whenever I was competing, he would grab them and hold them until I was done, and it was like, "Okay." So as long as I won, and then he was happy. But
yeah, that's hilarious. I always remember that. It's so funny. Oh man.
So right, you guys kind of articulated a little bit that, like, Casey, you competed almost primarily right away in NASCA, but Trevor, it seemed like it was a little different from you. Like you were almost a little bit more on the NBL side. So I want to touch a little bit more on that. We talk so much about the NASCA side of things because, well, the NBL doesn't exist anymore. And even for the last few years that it did, NASCA was still the #1 circuit. But that's the things that I loved so much about the NBL was that it had its regions. You knew that there was a legit ending world championship of that year. Tell me a little bit of what it was like, Trevor, from the NBL side of it, because we haven't had a lot of guys who just primarily started just with NBL on the show.
Well, I mean, I went to the very first Super Grands as an underbelt and competed at the very first Super Grands. And I think, through my years of competing, I only missed maybe 1 or 2 of the Super Grands. And I'll tell you why I liked NBL so much. It was the same set of rules for every event. And I think the thing that drives me nuts about NASCA, and it's not that as a fighter I can't adapt to each ring, but it's very much adapting to each person, right? Oh, this person's going to do this in this ring. This person's going to do that with NASCA, where that's why I like NBL so much. I'm going to give NASCA its credit where it had the competitors. It had the higher end fighters and it had the higher end, kettlebell stuff. But NBL had a set of rules that you could follow. So for me as a competitor, I knew what I was training for. Now, way back, the first couple Super Grands, every other year is groin kicks. I hated that. So but I knew that was happening. So I was able to adapt and change and practice for it. I'm a very much person that needs to know what's my goal? How do I achieve it? How do I make those steps work? So that's why I liked NBL better. I also liked it being a full 2 minutes. Back then NASCA 5 points, and you score 2 kicks and a punch and you're done. I felt when I was a younger fighter, I was a slow starter in the ring, so those 5 points would eat me up real quick. Where in a 2 minute match, I was able to make my adjustments, read the fighter, and then continue on from that point. So, and I'd have to also probably, for my father when we were traveling, he was driving me to all the tournaments and stuff like that. NASCA events for us was 9 out of 10 times we were flying. Like there wasn't anything near us. So, NBL, there was stuff near us all the time. So I was able to go to a tournament almost every weekend and compete in the same circuit with the same rules, with the same set of people to understand what we're doing moving forward.
Yeah. And Trevor too, also it made it easier once you had a school too, because as an instructor, as a coach, you can tell them and they know, like my hardest thing now is not only because of COVID, my kids having been competing, but also getting them into, hey, we're just going to tournaments now and every tournament's a different rules. It's kind of difficult.
Well, Jeff, you hit it on the nose. And that's why Team United was so dominant with NBL.
Yep.
Because I could have underbelts to my black belts, from a 5-year-old to a 55-year-old, and they all did the same thing. So when it came time to practice with each other, it was able to say, here's what we're focusing on tonight as a group. And we were able to take that knowledge and practice towards it. Where, like you're saying, we're traveling to one NASCA, and I'm not hitting on NASCA, so please don't take it that way. But when you travel to a NASCA event, it's different per ring, and it's very much sometimes different per judge in the ring. And how do you explain that to a 5-year-old after you've practiced for so long? Or how do you explain that to someone that put in, 6 months of practice to go to Diamond Nationals, and then that's not what it was supposed to be? And I'm not trying to make excuses in any which way, because a fighter has to adapt 110%. But it's hard to explain that to somebody that's coming up into the circuit and that's coming up to make a name for themselves. It's hard.
Yeah.
So it sounds a little bit like you're articulating, not just like, all right, here are some problems that we have. What you're really articulating, it sounds to me like this is going to eventually fail if somebody doesn't fix this. Like in the end, we love this sport so much, but what if we found something else? There isn't a sport anymore then.
So you're touching on an interesting subject, Alex, because I very much feel over the last, take COVID out of it for a minute, right? Because COVID, I think, has made a huge impact on our sport. But right. I would say over the last 5 years, the sport's dying. Like when I first started and I was competing, there was 30 to 40 kids in my sparring division.
Yeah.
Now you show up to a tournament and you're lucky if you have 5. And I know very much near the ending of my fighting career, yeah. right? Like I could show up and in my division, there'd be 2 other people. If that, there's a lot of times where I'd show up in my division and there'd be nobody. So I'd be rate shifted to Grant, which for me sucks because I'm not traveling a full days of travel to right. not get the fight. I didn't train the 6, 8, 10 weeks leading into this tournament not to fight. Like that drove me bananas, right? So I truly do feel that the sport's dying, and I don't mean it as a bad thing. I would love to know what I can do to help regrow the sport because I do very much love it. But I think, I guess maybe my one tip of advice is you've got to get, and I don't mean this again in any bad way, but you've got to get the big dogs that think they're big dogs, but they're older generation with the old generation mindset. You've got to get these new guys that are coming up, and then allow them to re-spark it. Because that's what it needs. It needs a spark. It needs something to go, oh crap, I want to go there. Or, oh crap, that was awesome. This is what I want to do. Because nobody wants to travel to compete in fight 1.
No, not at all. It's not worth it.
Well, and I'll give you an example.
But I think if I can chime in on what you said before.
Go for it, Case.
No, if I can chime in on what you said before, because we've had this conversation a lot. As far as attendance goes, I think when you have less attendance, your results are skewed in the mind of the competitor. And when my kids come back, because I don't normally travel with them because in a lot of reasons, like the forms and weapons training is done in the gym and then they're on their own in the ring. So they come back and they go, hey, I took second, I took first, I took third, whatever. And normally my first question is always, how many people were there? If there are 3 people and you took third, I'm not impressed. No offense, like I'm not. If there are 4 people and you took second, I'm still like, it only matters who was there. Like it doesn't matter that you took first. It matters who did you beat. And I think when you have less people there and you have all, and I'm not going to throw names because I don't really know who's competing right now, but when you have these kids going, yeah, I took 5 titles here and 4 titles there, and you go timeout, look at the data, there was nobody there. That really changes the name of the game, because I think if you go back, a decade ago and you say, holy crap, like based on who's in this division, anybody could win. It could be, if I jump back and go, trying to think, you'll know some of these like Jimmy Schroeder, Peter Linde, Kingston Ing, Meadow Mays, Bernadette, like they're all in the same division. You have all these people and it's like, okay, out of the top 8, who won? Because it could have been anybody. Now you're talking stats, right? And I think that really bugs me when kids boast about what they did on a regional, national, whatever level. It doesn't matter. It matters who you beat to achieve that goal.
Right.
Well, you both kind of said the same thing. No, that was perfect, Case.
Yeah,
so you both kind of said the same thing, because Trevor, you were kind of mentioning the same thing, like almost as if it was you. Like you were saying, yeah, I mean, I guess I won the heavyweight grand, but I didn't really beat anybody.
Yeah. Well,
so,
I mean, if you take it back to like when I was, 16, 17, because I was fighting adults at that point, right? And then 18, 19, 20. My divisions back then were stacked. Like Ray, Jason, Rene Perot, Max Langlois. Like my division was stacked full of people. And then if you won your division, you're still fighting a top end fighter for that grand runoff, right? That's when I love the sport, because win or lose, I was always coming back with something. I was coming back, okay, Johnny beat me and this is how he beat me. I need to adapt. I need to fix. I need to change. Or I won this event, but I barely beat this person because of this. Or it left me wanting more, where now, or near the ending of my career, I was never wanting more. I would go to this tournament and I'd fight maybe once in division and I'd fight my grand. It was my real only fight was the final fight in grands, right? It was either against Ray or Jason or, love Ray to death at this point. Again, as a kid though, I had a hard time interacting with Ray, right? But now that we've interacted so much with All-Star and the team that him and I are trying to build for the future for these younger All-Star kids, as we talked about it, right? He's an amazing person. And I had a totally different view of Ray than I did as an 18 or a 19-year-old, right? So Ray and I are trying to spark these kids, but how do you spark a kid when he shows up to an event and he has no one to fight? Or it's an easy fight. How do you convince him to continue training? There needs to be something to spark more people to be out.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, definitely. And Alex and I we even talked about that, that year. We even did 2 episodes on this. We talked about the year 2000 and how much of a pivotal year that was, and how it was one of the first times where the leagues kind of everybody was doing both circuits, NBL and NASCA in 2000 and 2001. And Elite happened, the JPM changed and added people like Raymond. SES came about. Lots of teams, Miami Vice, lots of teams are coming about. And man, it was just a different time. And talk about that year, because both of you, Casey had some of her best years during that time. Oh, yeah. And you as well, just really were getting to where people knew of you, but really people started to fear you.
We'll let Casey go first.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Casey.
It's such a delay. Okay, I'll go. How about that? Those years were fun years, though. When we first started Elite, right? We had Thomas Wright, who I'd never met until we actually got on Elite together, right? And when we were on Elite, and maybe Jeff, you'll correct me because I don't remember all the years. They've all kind of blended together for me. But, we also started, that's when I started going from NBL to NASCA competing too. Because until I got picked up, I wasn't really going over to NASCA. I wasn't competing in NASCA because, again, I wasn't, we're flying everywhere at that point, right? So when we got picked up as sponsors and I started traveling over to NASCA and those events, I got to meet a bunch of new people. And when you get to meet a bunch of new people and a bunch of new challenges, one of the big things that I used to have, with Thomas Wright, was we'd always set what technique are we going to hit with in this sparring match, and we'd always have a specific technique that we'd want to try and hit somebody with, and it got fun, and again that brought the spark back, right? Because now there's a competition within a competition, right? Which always made us train, made me anyways train more. Interacting with Preston a bit too, because that was the real first time when I came over when we started Farm Police that I ever really had a trouble having another kicker. Because always, a lot of times in heavyweight, you don't have another good kicker along with you. So, when I got into the NASCA side of it with the sponsor team, there was more kickers. So that was a really interesting and challenging part for me too, because I was like, holy shit, these guys can kick. Now I got to adapt, right? So again, those were fun times for me. I enjoyed those a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead, Kate.
I think personally for me, it was a bit of a shell shock going over from NASCA to NBL. I think the first one we ever did was June Reeves tournament in DC. A group of us went, like Matt Mullins and I think John Sue went with us. Like a group of us went, and it was weird. Like just walking in and everybody's looking at you like you don't belong here. Are you aware that you're at the wrong event? The only person that spoke to me was Keith Weston, which I look back now and I guess I appreciate that a lot more now, knowing who he is and what he's done for the sport as well. But it was different, because I was used to competing for forms, and having to beat Stephanie Flowers. So figuring out how to match a Japanese form against something like her Korean was awesome and her creative. So you compare it a lot different, and then being able to go, okay, now it's Japanese versus Japanese.
Thank you.
Different criteria, and then being able to branch out and start competing in Korean was different. And then if I just go to Trevor talking about the sparring, I think NBL's sparring style helped me a lot too, because it gave somebody who's not as much of an offensive fighter a different way to play the game. And I feel that the coach plays a bigger part. The rules played a bigger part as far as actually getting the timeouts. Makes a big difference to be able to reassess. Where sometimes if you're a slow starter on NASCA, that first to 5 points at the time was, well, I'm sure I got kicked in the head 3 times and it's over. Where NBL gave me a chance to let Trevor fix it and go, no, this is what you need to do. Here's your timeout, fix it. You've got a full 2 minutes, use your time. And having him there as a coach made a huge difference, because that was the first time too for me that I felt like I had a consistent coach. Because being on the teams previous, you're training on your own, which is hard. It's definitely hard for sparring. So being with him and actually having someone to move with on a regular basis that knows how you fight, that knows what you're doing, actually helped me a lot too, transitioning over just in general. And I think I have to give a lot of the success I had in those years to the fact that I had United and I had him as a coach.
Awesome.
Can I touch base on the coaching side of it? For NBL made me a better instructor and a better coach, hands down. Because now you're constantly analyzing, right? And you're constantly you're going back and you're practicing, going, fuck, how do I beat this, or how do I change this, or it made me hands down a way better coach and hands down a way better instructor. So I mean, I give a ton of credit to that side of it.
Yeah, and to me, still, to me, you're one of my favorite coaches. Just not even you've coached me a couple of times, but also just watching, and how you coach. And
that's because I yell too much.
That too, it's all right. but it's and I think again, NBL gave people different opportunities like that. People still don't mention someone like Laco from Alchemy, who is an amazing coach, who says the same thing. NBL gave me a platform to do this and gave me rule book that I can follow, and I can actually coach. Can't really coach at other events where there's not really that, where you don't really know what you can and can't do, so 100%. There is that, and now he's gotten to where he has kids that's won WKC, WACO, WKU, every world league, as well as NBL and stuff. So,
he was a great coach. I haven't seen coach in a long time, but back when I was heavily involved, he was an amazing coach. Coach. It was fun watching, because how do you adjust to another coach? Now you're not just coaching a kid to a kid fighting; you're coaching against the coach too, which is a lot of fun too, right? And again, I go back to that made the sport fun. That made it enjoyable.
Yep. Definitely.
Well, and you got a fellow teammate, Chris Walker, just chimed in and said that you're an amazing coach as well. So
yeah.
I love Chris.
Who?
Chris is the man. He was one of my favorite fighters to always fight too. Cause a lot of times when fighting with Chris, it was actually about the actual sport. Where a lot of times when you end up fighting somebody, it's about playing the game and running and avoiding but Chris always wanted to spar. He always wanted to fight, and I love that. And he brought a lot of my best fights out of me. I love Chris to death. Great guy.
Yeah, you guys had some epic fights at the battle and stuff. Yeah.
Okay, you both kind of touched on a few things that I want to bring up a little. Maybe it's a hot take. I don't know. So you both, let's just say for the fighting aspect, okay, you both fight with your left side. 2 different styles as to how you guys fight. Jeff and I came out about a year ago, maybe a little more, with our top 20 kickers lifts of all times. Jeff from the forums aspect. All right. Me from the fighting aspect. Trevor, I had you listed. Don't hate me. I had you listed number 2. Greatest kicker of all time. Jason Borelli, I had him number 1. Okay.
Interesting you say that. That's interesting.
Now, but I want to ask, here's the question I have.
Just walk
do
away.
You feel oh, but here's my but now this one's valid though. my question is do you guys feel like overall you had a little bit of an advantage fighting with your left side? Because primarily, stereotypically, our sport will have a right side fighter and will lead with their front leg. Do you feel like? Go ahead.
No, I think you're asking a very interesting question because, I wouldn't necessarily say dominant to one side. I would say it's more country based. Like if you come to Canada and fight in Canada, very rarely you'll find a right forward fighter. It's rare. Even when I was growing up as a kid, if I was left-handed, I was still taught to be left leg forward. Like it's really interesting. And then when Casey came up, she was a right side forward fighter when she came up to us. And, she's right-handed. And I was like, that's not the way we would teach it. And I explained it. We ended up adjusting her to putting left side forward. And it made a world of difference in her fighting, right? Like, so is there an advantage being a left leg forward?
I was still bouncing. Yeah, I was still bouncing back and forth because I was right side forward because at the school we worked at, you put your dominant hand forward because your kicking leg is better on that side. And to this day, I still kick better off my right leg. But when I got picked up on Paul Mitchell, Coach Rodriguez, I remember flying to his house to train and straight to my face was like, Case, you suck, switch sides. And I was like, oh, and he said, you can't learn how to punch off your bad side. He goes, but you can learn how to kick off your other side. So start playing with it. And then when Trevor got a hold of it, he was like, yeah, you need to be left side forward because you're a puncher, not a kicker. So you need to punch with your dominant side. It makes way more sense. So I don't know. But yeah, I agree with Trevor. I definitely see a difference country. But I also wonder too, is that because of the rules? Because on NASCA with the 2-point kicks, you're more apt to put your kicking leg forward because you want to get out of that fight faster. Where NBL is more, no offense, NASCA, is a little bit more strategy and everything based, if that makes sense.
Well, I think
Alex too, to answer a little bit of that question too, Alex, I had an advantage in me personally because I knew when I was fighting an American fighter, right side forward, they're going to kick, they switch feet, they're punching. So whenever I fought Jason, I knew what he was doing. So or it gave me advantage of what he was going to do. So it always gave me advantage that way of knowledge. But being a left side forward kicker, I always found it more difficult fighting a right side forward kicker. I always found it more difficult. Yeah.
Really? Yeah. That's interesting to me because I feel like the spacing is different. Spacing is different, but I always kind of feel like, all right, a good long, great left leg kicker. It's just like a unicorn. How many of those guys are there? Right? There's
the only other guy that I would say
there's Roman Brundle.
I'd say Zolt. Zolt was one of the other left leg kickers that.
No, he's right side. He's right side.
Is he really? Because I've only fought him a couple times.
That's why I felt like I didn't have a problem with him. All right.
Interesting. But going back to left side to right side, you got to remember as me training up here in Canada, we didn't have right side kickers. So going to a tournament and having to adjust to a right side forward kicker was always difficult to us. And I'm a big believer in fighting too. It's foot position, right? It's inside position or outside position. And if I have outside position, I'm not going to score as much to an inside position of the foot. So, that was always a tricky battle because you're so much closer in distance when I'm fighting an opposite side forward foot. So it always made a difference on foot position.
Well, there's also different moves that you will have the opportunity to fight. Okay, so let's just say, just stereotypes. Let's say I'm fighting either one of you. It's an open stance because you both fight with your left. Okay. Now, you see that if, like you guys just kind of articulated for in the States, you're going to see that a lot more often than what I'm seeing in you. However, now, if you go back, guys, if you're listening to this, you're watching this, watch some tape. Trevor, I would see inverted round kicks landed on the chest. We throw them in school, but come on. Who throws that? Trevor threw that, right?
Yeah, Trevor would, Claire would.
Claire. I learned that from Claire.
Exactly. Yep.
Now here's one that I saw, and I was cheering against you. I was cheering again. I'll never forget this one. 06 Diamonds. Okay, so it's the heavyweight grand. Trevor, you're fighting BJ Carnahan. Okay, No, it's for first place in the heavyweight division. You're fighting BJ Carnahan. BJ's doing all right. And you had already tried the inverted round kick at one point in the fight. This was the scoring. This was the final move in the match. You faked the spin and showed him your back leg, and BJ backs up, and you switch it and just do a front leg skip round kick. And I'm like, who the frick thinks of that? Who thinks of this move, right? So your right leg skips behind, and then you switched it back and just threw a left leg round kick to his head. And we all just sat there like, who thinks of this? Because we would never throw that, especially to the back side. It's not even like it's coming towards the front side. It was coming towards his back side.
But those are things we practice, though. Like, so those are things that we would practice.
That's what
we want to know. Yeah.
You actually practice moves like that.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, so back when I mean, I don't know if you guys like Shane Baker was one of my students when we were first coming up. You know, after teaching it all night at school, he was like one of my head instructors at the time.
Which now that you brought him up, I'm going to have a question about him later. But go ahead.
Sure. We would train after classes, and we would do like our 8 to 10 rounds. Casey, the group of fighters that we're all around, and then our last 2 to 3 rounds, it would be what we call just fuck around rounds, and we would do stuff like that and go, how does this work? How does that work? Oh, wait, that was really close. Let's do it again. And we always chose Casey because she was the smallest player, so it always worked really well for us. But, you know, like the whole under the leg back fist stuff, you know, like in the hinge kick and the, you know, trying the illusion kick and the spin, like the jump foot kick where we did at Super Grand, like all the stuff we did in our, you know, mess around things in class.
Yeah.
Wow. What is Brett saying?
Brett's saying he's Trevor's the only fighter he's seen hit it with a soccer style bicycle kick. He said it. Matt.
How is that possible?
It's actually pretty easy.
Yeah.
It's pretty easy. It's just setting up the angle. It's what position you're set up and the angle you position you're in.
Right. Yeah.
But we just had fun with it, right? We just played with that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And I'll be honest, that kind of stuff, you know, fighting Ray with his spin back kick, right? Everybody, even still today, I mean, I don't want to be hit by it. I remember one time sparring Ray at a tournament, and I blitzed, and he started, and I was like, oh crap, and like I'm gonna get hit. So I put my head down, and he hit me in the top of my head, and I'm pretty sure I was about 6 inches shorter by the end of that process because, you know, first off, I'm stumbling around the ring at that point, and my shoulders felt like I was like this because he hit me with a spin kick on the top of my head. Like that kind of stuff allowed me to see it. It wasn't like a freak out moment because now I've seen it so many times when we did our, you know, mess around rounds. I'd seen crazy stuff. So my body was responding faster to seeing it.
Awesome. Yeah, Casey, I think, had something to chime in, but I'm not sure.
Was that the same one where you turned and punched yourself in the face?
No, that was a different tournament. We don't want to talk about that at all. We don't want to talk about that.
That's a good one.
It happened.
Yeah.
All right. I was thinking about asking this question because, all right, we have talked so much about how dominant you guys were, and we really haven't even gotten into it, Casey, and I want to do this next, about how dominant you were with your weapons and really where that came from. But the interesting question I really thought about was when you guys really first thought, like, all right, I'm on the national level, who was the first person to bust your ass? Who was the first person to just whoop your ass? And you're like, all right, I'm here now. But yet, this dude just sent me
forms or fighting
a slice of humble pie.
Yeah.
That's a great question.
Yeah.
You know, like I had trouble with Borelli my junior years and my first year or two an adult. And once I was able to train with him more, I was able to figure out the timing and figure out the pace of that. Ray and I always felt we went back and forth, you know, and hands down, Ray's a better fighter than I am and all that stuff. So I'm not trying to say any of that side of it, but, you know, someone that gave you, like, I was more coached. I wouldn't go coach. Conroy always screamed at me, even when I won. Like, I remember fighting Ninja one time, and that I had always had a beef with Ninja because I didn't like his fighting style and blah, 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 blah. But I'd come out of a couple of times. I was fighting him because he was in my division all the time. And Jeff would know. Conroy would lay into me. And like, you're not as good as you think you are. You've got to stop. Like, I would say humble pie would be Conroy. He was the one who gave me, he lowered me back down to where I needed to be.
That's a good
We
one.
had a 2-episode show of Conroy as well.
Yeah.
Because he's, as everybody knows, has the greatest stories that anyone's ever heard.
All right, go Casey.
Yeah. What about you, Case?
I don't know. I think as far as forms and weapons, I never felt I was where I wanted to be. So there wasn't really that moment of like knockdown, maybe. Like I think there was always somebody else I was looking towards, because it was one thing to get out of the daytime, but you still had the finals, and to compete against John Valera and Ming Wu in the finals there was always somebody in my eyes that was, a cut above the rest. So that, I don't know that I ever got it that way. I think I always enjoyed doing all the divisions, and there were a couple times where I was kind of told that you might want to stick to one. So that kind of cuts you down a little bit and makes you think about where your efforts are. But I still did all of them. So
yeah,
it's like,
no,
you still do where your heart is, right? But I think as far as a humble pie, that might have been
awesome.
Well,
yeah, Casey, explain that, because I think that's something that happens to most people, especially when they get up to adults. They feel like, okay, my effort needs to go towards one or the other. And we don't see that many all-around competitors anymore. There's few. And to me, still, you're the best female all-around competitor. You're my favorite. There's so many, like Kevin Thompson, Jason Braley, Casey Nash are the best, all-around competitors. Terry Kramer, those competitors, it's crazy, right? But explain that I'm trying to think, just, did you ever have that moment where you're like, I'm still going to do them all, and why you think there is that pressure to pick one? No, that's a long question.
I think people pick one because they don't like losing.
Good.
And I think there's that's probably the easiest way to put it, is people don't like losing. So if you're better at one, but you lose over here, people look at you different. Right. And I guess expectations wise, there was never any expectation for me to do well in sparring. Like my and I don't know if she'll watch this, but my mom would have been happy if I never sparred.
Really?
I used to get crap from her all the time. Like she hated it. She still hates it. But I don't know where my train of thought went with that ADD comment. But people don't like losing. So when you hit black belt and it gets a lot harder, and you realize the effort it's going to take to be successful, you tend to focus your efforts. And if I don't know, so you kind of cut away the dead weight, but I think that's what happens. I also think, without starting a whole nother debate, I think there are a lot of people that don't necessarily embrace martial arts as an art anymore, and they embrace it more as maybe a creative outlet. Which brings me back to Trevor was talking earlier about Chris Walker, and I think that's the difference. I think he's a martial artist. Yeah. Kevin Thompson's a martial artist. Terry Kramer is a martial artist. Correct. They're not necessarily a sport karate competitor, and I think there's a difference. I think these kids are phenomenal. I think their athleticism is through the roof. They're doing stuff on padded floors that people just shouldn't do. Like physically, you watch it and you go, that just gravity shouldn't work that way. Right. So kudos to them for what they're able to do. But I think if you take it back down to just the pure art form, I think that's the difference. And I think to really be good at any of them, you have to be able to do it all. I think that people forget that Trevor competed in forms and weapons. I think people forget that he teaches traditional stuff too. And I think that if you have an understanding of traditional martial arts, all you have to do is apply it. And I think that if more of the competitors today knew how to apply the movements they're performing, I think you would see a much different performance. I think it would look more like martial arts and less like an athletic demonstration. I think if that's the way to put it without being disrespectful.
No. And Casey, I mean, well, we've talked about this before, and this is why, we always work together, and you guys always, if there's someone you want me to teach Korean forms or whatever to, you guys kind of send them my way, and vice versa, because we agree on that. It's about the application, and it would not only connect with the judges more, but also connect with the audience more when they understand it, right? So, I mean, it's huge. It's you still have to look like a martial artist. So
well,
I want to
a
chime
different
in.
flow, and it has a different direction to what you're doing. And I think, and I'm not going to say names. I think the people that are there know who they are. But I was sitting at the Battle of Atlanta. I had been away for a bit, so I don't know. You guys know the years better than me, but with Chelsea, and we were watching the guys fight on stage. I think Ray was fighting, and we were sitting there having a conversation about adjustments and this, that, and the other. And one of the younger team members looked at us and gave us this face. He was, you know what's happening? And I looked like, well, yeah, that's like they're fighting. Like you cut an angle, you do this, you move, and like just baffled because they think that you just perform, and it's like, no, you have to actually understand what you're doing. And if you understand where the power comes from and where the force comes from and how to generate that power, your movements will be a lot easier too.
Right. Yeah. The worst thing I ever heard was a top forms and weapons competitor tell me he didn't own a pair of sparring gear, like a set apart sparring gear. I was like, what? Like not even in your school you train at? Like what? So,
but look at some of your top end, like look at some of your top end fighters. They were great competitors and cutters and weapons as juniors too, right? Yeah. Like, Ray on NBL competed in cutters and weapons.
Yeah.
Like, and did amazing with this. Yeah, exactly. You know what I mean? Jason Borelli and all those great fighters.
Robbie, all those guys. Yep.
Yeah, all did well in their weapons form. And I contribute my kicking ability to traditional kata. You know what I mean? It made me more flexible. It made me learn my balance. It made me understand how to lift my kick. Like, instead of just showing up and, hey, I can play, it's like, it's a huge part of it.
Yeah. Hey, can we bring that question up that Lauren Carney has?
Oh, no, not her.
Oh, God.
Yeah. Do you think if more competitors did point sparring, you would see a shift in forms of weapons concepts? I think we kind of agree that we would, but.
I think that's more of a question.
I don't know. I don't know where point sparring fits into it, because I think, we have this debate a lot, but whenever Trevor starts like new people in a sparring class, he tells them to take traditional karate and throw it out the window. And I always make a face at him, because to me it's not. But what he's trying to say is that you need to be able to look at them as two different concepts, because sport karate is adapted in a different, not sport karate, point sparring is adapted in a different way than traditional combat. But I think I definitely think that if competitors that were doing the creative side of things were able to actually put their hands on someone and physically move someone and hit someone and take a hit, and I think their body language would change. I think we were always yelled at that when you do kata, it's fighting an invisible opponent. And then if you do it correctly, the people watching you should be able to visualize that other opponent. They should be able to be in that fight with you.
Right.
And I think the people that you watch, like Mike Renardo was always one for me. Brian Ruth with his bow was always one for me too.
Yeah.
John Valera, where you almost all the hairs on your body go up because you feel like you're a part of the energy. I think that to me is a big difference. But yeah, you feel like you can see where the contact would go. And I think that's why you get someone like JV, like John Blair, that's gone on to the amount of stunt work he's done. I think that's a true testament to how much his base was, how much of a martial arts base he had to transfer into stunt work.
Well, and also part of it is that a lot of these guys that do kata, they don't learn the bunkai of it anymore. They just learn it for the tournaments.
Well, they need to have their nose broken.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that somebody needs to bust them, but if you don't know what your own blood smells like, I don't know.
Oh, exactly. You got to.
Yeah. How about you know what? This one, Jeff. back me up on this. Okay, so for both of you two, we've been at, this is episode 100. Almost since the beginning, we were trying to like articulate like an intangible for both of you, and Jeff and I both came up with this term called badassery. Right? And like, yeah, the two of you just had this badassery to you. Like when you walk in, and Trevor, you kind of talked a little bit about it, like you didn't want to like befriend your opponent. And I'm such an extrovert, whether we're friends or not. I'm always out there. I'm animated. I'm talking to people. There was a certain amount of intimidation from the both of you that you guys just had, just standing there, almost more of a stoic sense. And then when you would go fight, all right, and compete, like it was something else. Like there was some badassery to it. Casey, I want to mention one thing. I think Ryan George asked a question about it.
Oh yeah.
There was a demo you did.
Well, it was a self-defense division. Yeah.
Was the well? See, I was okay. Maybe there's two different things.
No.
That was okay. So when he said was breaking the staff in self-defense intentional. Do you know what he's talking about?
Yeah.
Okay, so
Okay.
I should have known this was coming.
Yes.
So self-defense was a division I had never done, and I'm always up for fun stuff and hitting people. And Jeremy asked me would I do it, and that was probably the most fun I have ever had competing. Like just from a training aspect to just doing it with him. If I take a couple steps back, regional tournament. I think it was actually John Marshall's. No, it wasn't John Marshall's. It would have been the one in Poughkeepsie, maybe.
I thought it was
we
John,
were going to do it. I think it was our first time ever doing it. And was it John's? It was one of the first times of us ever doing it. And he's like, are you ready? Are you ready yet? And he's like, I need you to hit me. I'm like, okay, I'm going to hit you back. And I'm like, all right. And I've never been so stunned when that man smacked me across the face. And I'm like, like seriously? But he used to say, he goes, when we swing it, he goes, this is the covering. And the plan always was, and in all the divisions going up to that, he's so versed in how to move his body that he was taking that in such a way off of his arm. Now, I don't know how his arm was fine after that, but still, that's where he was taking it. And that year at Super Grands, when we made it on, which I wasn't sure we were, that all goes to Jeremy's choreography. It's all him. But there was somebody else in that division that I think they butted heads with that had said some stuff that they didn't realize that had been overheard. And before we started, Jeremy looked at me and he goes, no matter what happens, you swing. And I went, what? And he goes, and I told him, I said, don't tell me what you're going to do because then I won't be able to do it. And he goes, Casey, just swing. And I said, okay. So we did the division and I swung. And that was not a competitive weapons bow. That was a thicker, like that thing had some weight to it.
Yeah.
And I was not expecting that reaction. The bow split this way and then snapped back together. So I didn't know if that was a rule in NBL that we would be disqualified. So I kind of finished with that thing half together. And I about peed my pants when Jeremy didn't get up. And I'm sitting there like, okay, we're going to get scored. And the scores come up and he's still on the freaking ground. And I'm like, oh my God, I killed Jeremy Elliott. He's not going to get up. And then all of a sudden we get all the scores. And I'm like, what do I do now? And boop, he pops up, fouls, and everything's great. And I'm like, holy crap. Like, and I gave him so much crap after I seriously thought, like, and he kept that bow. Further to that story, it was still like, it kind of split like this. So it was still holding on by a shred, right? So he asked me if he'd keep it. So he kept the bow. Some idiot at the bar that night broke it. So now it is in two pieces.
Right. Wow. Yeah. Jeremy's just, man, that dude's tough. He went on to be like, I mean, he's still martial artist and everything, but he was a pro wrestler for a while as well. So he's done everything. He knows how to do it, man.
The sound of that bow hitting his head though was,
and yeah, Like hearing it in the building was one thing, but you can even feel it when you watch the video on YouTube. You can still like, oh, that doesn't sound right. Like that, yeah. It was scary.
All right, there's a few questions I have for the two of you guys, and I don't want it to be an extra long show, so I want to make sure I get at it quick. Casey, I want to stay on you for a moment. Okay, we talked about your weapons form. I would say that's one of the things right away that when people think about Casey Nash, they're like, yeah, she's the damn business when it comes to weapons. I feel like, and I've mentioned this to you before, I feel like I jinxed you, right? There was a few, like probably 10 years ago, there was a Diamonds when you were going to compete, and man, I'm such an a-hole because you're about to go on the stage, and I go, Casey, if you win this, you'll be the only person to win a forms, a fighting, and a weapons diamond. I said it a couple times.
Yeah.
Be honest.
I think I cried that night.
Did I jinx you?
If I told you yes, would it hurt your feelings?
I mean, it would be the truth, wouldn't it? I don't know. You tell me.
No. No, it wasn't your fault. It was my fault.
Okay, so it was Mike. So I jinxed you. Okay.
No, it wasn't. No, I can't blame anybody but myself for those mistakes. And
but there was a
that,
couple of finals. There was a couple of them, and you really.
There were quite a few finals. I had plenty of chances to win that division as an adult and did not come through. I only won that weapons as a junior.
But that's like a trivia question, is it not? Is it not to say Casey Nash has 2 diamond rings, and neither one of them are weapons. In 2 different categories. I'm sorry, in 2 different categories.
Oh, yeah.
Right, and neither one of them are weapons. That would be the people would look at that and go, "The freaking way, man! Get out of here!" Right? And,
yeah.
But yeah, and that's where I feel like I'm kind of an a-hole in that. Right?
No.
What's happening, Jeff? You popped out.
You can be that for other things.
Oh.
No, I think too, like, it was just the timing was wrong. Well, not that you don't want the division to be easy. So, like those years for weapons was John Valera and Ming Lu.
Yeah.
Like, if I'm gonna, that was hard. So.
Yeah. Well, let's stay on the diamond topic.
Yeah.
Trevor, you had a run where it was like the Diamond Nationals was like your damn tournament.
Right.
Do you feel like that?
I did well. Yeah, I did well.
You had 4 years in a row where it was you and Jason Borelli as the final fight.
Yeah, that was pretty sweet.
And damn, right? So those were fantastic matches. Tell me a little bit about it.
It was funny. It's funny you say that because Casey gets mad at me all the time for it because back then, Jason and I had built a little bit of a friendship at that point because we were on the same team. And at other tournaments, we were splitting grand championships, not just amongst him and I, but amongst our team. Like we would take the money, whoever won, and it'd be split amongst the team, right? So all the other fighters we were splitting the money. So the first couple of times fighting Jason on stage, I didn't care. And I don't say I didn't care. It's probably not the right choice of words. But the level of intensity wasn't there. So in case she gets mad at me every time we talk about it, because she's like, you still should have fought to win, and you still should have fought to be it. And to me, it wasn't. I didn't go to tournaments to win the tournament. I would definitely, and I still don't. Even like if I was to go back and compete now, I don't go to tournaments to win the tournament. I go to beat certain people. Right, that was my goal. If I wanted to show up to a tournament, this is the person I want to fight, so that's who I'm going to get to. And if you look back at a lot of my fighting, and a mistake on my part is I'd get to those people and I would beat those people, and then my next fight would be against somebody else that's not at that same level, right. And my level of intensity wasn't there, and I'd lose.
Yeah.
And Conrad would get all over me for that. So yeah, Casey gets on me about and it's just a funny story because Casey gets on me about that because. And I'm not taking anything away from Jason. Please don't think it in any which way of that for those fights. It just, even him and I, like, it's like like some of those fights weren't necessarily really fighting each other, right? Like it had already been decided what was happening in those situations. And
Right.
I look back on it now, and we should have fought because it would have made us better fighters.
Yeah.
In the day, we should have fought.
Right. And at that time too, you guys were like, y'all's divisions matched up to where y'all had to fight immediately for runoff. It wasn't like y'all were going to meet each other in the finals. Y'all were in the daytime runoff at that time too.
Yeah.
So it was always like, and really in a lot of ways, you had the harder division. You had the harder division. You beat everyone in that division. And then, you know.
I appreciate you seeing that.
What did you say?
I appreciate you seeing that. I felt the same.
Yeah.
Well, but then as you fast forward a little bit later, Trevor, like to echo a little bit of what you're saying, you're like, I would go to tournaments to fight people. And I asked you, this was, as we go now, at this point, we're at the Irish Open. And there was almost more of a contentious thing. Is the All-Stars going to, fight in this team fight final? We were kind of hung up for a little bit. I remember talking to you like, because there was like we're gonna leave. I remember talking to you like, dude, what are you gonna do? And you said to me, you go, I'm just here to beat Zolt. And I was like, wait, what the frick did you just say? And you're like, I'm gonna do whatever they say, but I'm here to beat Zolt. I'm like, all right, damn it. Now, the next day, because now we're in the open weight, right? Or 2 days later, we're in the open weight, and I thought it was the last one. And I don't mean to be pulling a bandit off a wound right now.
No, go for it, man.
You and Zolt are having a freaking battle, and you win, and Trevor Nash fast and just scream like battle cry. I walk away.
True.
I thought that was the final for the bracket. I thought that's it. Now we got we get the last spot filled. I come back later, you're in street clothes, and I'm like, oh, aren't you in the final? I had no clue that wasn't the final. You had to fight Roman Brundle for that one. And I remember, and I'm asking you that, and you're like, yeah, we don't talk about that right here. And I'm like, well, shit. All right, didn't mean for that. Go ahead, Casey.
What I'm hearing is that you jinxed him too.
Yeah.
Shit, right. I didn't even think of that. Damn it.
Yeah, but that was my MO all the time, though. Is I would go and I would beat the people I wanted to beat, and stupidly, I didn't put the effort forth after that.
Right.
And then it's a stupid thing on my side.
Yeah. Man,
but those are personal goals, right? Those are the things you set out for yourself, and those are the things that matter to you and nobody else. Like half the trophies, right? Like they matter to us, not anybody else. Nobody else cares.
No.
And the ones that you remember, nobody else will remember.
Oh, that's a true point. Because there's specific fights that I specifically remember, and even to this day when I'm teaching, I bring them back up to these guys and they look at me like, what fight was that? And I'm like, I don't know. I was 19. They don't remember it. But there's some specific fights that I had to prove a point, and those are why I trained, and that's why I went to specific tournaments. Like when I started picking tournaments, I hadn't competed for a while, but I wanted to go to Battle Land. I had to fight two people that in my mind kept thinking that they could beat me and they couldn't do it. And that was so when I go there, that would be what I was trying to prove. It wasn't necessarily to win the tournament. And I'm not saying that because I'm trying to sound big-headed in any which way. It's just, those were my goals. To me, it was more important to me to show myself, not anybody else, but myself, that what I did was correct. What I trained, how I prepared, what I did was correct for that person.
Right. Wow.
Stay on that right there.
Yeah.
Stay on that. That Battle of Atlanta in 2012.
Yeah.
Shit. Can we say that was a fantastic one?
That was a crazy.
Let's just quickly recap, just like footnotes, what happened. All right. Casey wins every form grand. Chelsea wins the fighting grand. Trevor wins the fighting team fight, the point fighting overall, and the Extreme Warrior Viking Ninja Challenge.
Yeah.
So it was, if there was some cash prize for an adult to win, you guys won it.
All of it. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, talk me through that, because there was another thing too, because you guys really hadn't competed a lot leading up to then. And Trevor, you debuted Team Full Circle, which you were always Paul Mitchell, and then all of a sudden it's like, where the heck did this come from? And both of you guys, however you guys want to take it, talk us through that one, because that is one of the Where Were You tournaments.
I think for me, I'll go back to Bernardo and Dubras were running the I think Canadian whatever tournament in Ottawa.
Canadian Open, yeah.
Yeah, and Chelsea and I had won Fighting Grands that year. Like I had won Fighting Grands, and Chelsea had won Fighting Grands, and then we were like, oh, that was awesome, a really neat thing. So in case you correct me if I'm wrong, but when Battle Atlanta came up, and the opportunity was able for now her to compete at a tournament, Chelsea to compete at a tournament, and me to compete at a tournament, that was the goal for all three of us. The Nash trio to actually win a full split, like every division, championship wise. That was the goal going into it.
But we'd already done that. We did that at Kumite first, though.
Yeah, I remember that.
Wasn't that before?
Right?
Yeah,
You're right.
Yeah,
Kate.
because
Yeah.
I remember sitting with Raymond, Robbie, and all of us being mad, looking at you guys walking into the restaurant after and be like, they took all our money.
Yeah.
So, if you want to talk Full Circle, coming on Full Circle, it's because Conroy.
Yeah.
It was Conroy. All hands down. That was the purpose and choice.
Now, there wasn't another tournament on Full Circle after that one, was there? Or was that the only one?
I only fought once with that uniform.
Yeah.
So, Casey, talk about that, what that's like for you. You're going to be JPM, the whole thing. Of course, just explain that, just where it's like, having Trevor on your team, then not, vice versa. I know he's his own person, but.
Yeah, I don't. I'm not sure how much it changed it for me, because we had already been in the same situation when he was on CJB as well, so it wasn't that different. I think it gets a little bit weird with the coaching side of things, but I think regardless, I think everybody knew who my coach was going to be at those events, and nobody really ever had an issue with it, or if they did, they didn't say it out loud directly at me. So
right,
I'll let that go. But yeah, it's definitely a better feeling walking in all wearing the same uniform. Like, I think that would have been really cool for all of us, just for the statement that it makes, right? But regardless, we're all in the same team,
But I think, though, Casey, to touch base a little bit on that, though, Casey, like, you can correct me again if I'm wrong on it, but me being on Paul Mitchell was still a clusterfuck with you and me anyways. Like, there was a lot of little stupid shit that we couldn't do. Like, we couldn't even room together on fucking Paul Mitchell.
Time.
Like
what?
Yeah.
Yeah, like it was just a clusterfuck. So it always felt, for me, and I'm not taking anything away from Paul Mitchell. They did a lot for me too, and I'm not saying like, but it was always a clusterfuck for me whenever I was on the team. So trying to coach Casey, I'd always get told no, or trying to help, I was always told no. And I'm like, whatever. I mean, I'm trying to follow rules or whatever you want to say that, but it was always, to me, it was always a clusterfuck.
All right.
That sounds like madness.
Yeah. Oh man.
All right,
Yeah.
I want to ask you this. So, now I want to know.
Yeah, Alex, get to that one. I want to ask Carmichael's question too.
Because you're like you guys couldn't room together. That was the one thing I hated about tournaments. Is I hate hotel rooms, because you're just in this box of germs, right? that you're trying to avoid. I hated. I'm not gonna. I think a team will pack like 4 guys in a room with 2 beds. Like, hey,
I've been worse than that.
I'm not sleeping in a bed with another person unless it's my wife. Like, sorry, people would laugh like, oh yeah, okay, you're weird. Like, no, that's weird. I'm not sleeping in a bed with you. That's weird, right? So What was that? Well, I don't know what that was like with you guys, because now you guys are married on the same team, and you got to be in rooms with two different people. This is freaking weird. Tell me how that was like.
And I'm not. Don't get me like I'm assuming the reasoning behind it was because there was not as many females, so that females needed specific rooms, right? Like female with female and stuff like that. So I'm assuming that was the reason behind it. But I go back to okay, husband and wife, and I couldn't stay with my own wife. Like how does that make sense?
Yeah.
So I mean. Listen,
there are
I could go on.
Where it was weird.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then wasn't there a tournament where I stayed with you and Lauren? Like I got put in with you and Lauren at a tournament because they didn't want to split more rooms for us at some point. Like
you would remember. I don't know.
Don't get me wrong. I love Lauren. Lauren's awesome, but
with Chelsea one year.
Oh yeah, Chelsea too, because Chelsea was on the team at one point with us at that point too, and for a couple of them, was she not? Like it was just weird. I mean, I can give you a bunch of stories that I just found absolutely weird.
Let's ask. I want to ask this question that Carmichael has. So he goes, Casey, what time was most special for you as a competitor? Your time as a junior pioneering the sport, or as an adult defining your legacy?
Wow. Carmichael always has a way with words.
Oh, he does.
Those are big words.
Yeah.
Oh.
Wow. Most special. That's hard. Why would he give me such
You better say when you met me. That's what you better say.
Yeah.
Oh, that was the most special time. I don't know. I see, and I still don't feel I fall in either one of those categories. Like I don't necessarily throw myself as a junior pioneer. I was just trying to do stuff different because it makes it more fun for me. And then I don't even know about the whole adult legacy thing. Like, cause I guess I don't see it the way everybody else sees it. Cause I have so many things on my plate that I would have maybe done different or wish I had done, or would have trained harder through certain years and not slacked off. And so that's kind of hard. I think the times that are most maybe memorable versus special, I think would be doing teams. I think for me that will always be a highlight for me. And several different teams. Like we did a team demo with Metro one year with Bernadette and Ashley Lane and Jennifer Santiago, like the four of us. Like it's just there's a different dynamic. Yeah, Jeff, you were there.
Yeah.
It's just such a different dynamic when you get to do that with someone else. And for the most part, I prefer martial arts because it is an individual sport, because to me, that hones in on the way I work as a person. But something about doing teams with Wayne and doing teams with Lauren, just, yeah, to me, I would say that for me was special.
Yeah.
If I can say something to that, she was always the happiest when she was doing teams. For me, like as a husband sitting back and watching, she was always the happiest when she was practicing teams, spending time doing that stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
Trevor was our artistic coordinator.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay,
that
so
was
as
always
long as
funny.
we're talking teams, I got a question about the teams. What about the demo that you did with David Douglas as well? You did like an intermission demo for a few tournaments.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. It was
David.
Gary. You know what I'm talking about, Jeff?
Yeah, we also did it at Karate Helps Kick Diabetes, where it was the chick with the stick. This is way back.
This is like 96.
96.
Oh.
97, yeah, 96, 97.
I might have blocked that out.
How? See, okay, now this is it. No, okay,
well, there was
so
one my brother and I did with Bernardo one year too.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, it was there was a lot of things like that, because I know for a while they started bringing in Gary, Daniel, all those guys just to do demos for a while. Right. But yeah, that was kind of a thing. It was just a fun thing. And I guess for a while that kind of became the thing where people just started doing demos at tournaments, and it kind of started with David and Casey and those guys, doing it, because before it really wasn't like a thing. And then it just kind of became one. So,
well, because they didn't have 412 grand championships then.
Well, true.
That aren't very grand.
Yeah.
Right.
All right. So, Casey, I'll go Casey first, and then we'll go to Trevor. What is something that you feel is missing in today's competition? You can say, let's just go forms and weapons that you would like to see more of. And then Trevor and fighting.
You need another episode just to get through this question.
I know. That's why I asked. This is every episode.
That's why we said we can't. Yeah. There's no way we could hit it all.
Yeah.
No.
We'll have a part 2 sometime.
Yeah.
Okay. You want something that is missing?
Yeah, that you'd like to see more of, or just you'd like to see more of.
Karate.
All right.
I want to see. I think I want to see more competitors that embrace it as an art versus just a performance, and I think that would take our sport to the next level.
Yes.
And can I keep rules? How about that?
Yeah.
How about consistency? How about professionalism? Starting on time. I could just keep going.
Yeah.
I'm gonna stop.
Love it. Yeah, my mom just says she agrees, and she said, "Hey, Trevor and Casey."
My mama does.
All right, Trevor. What about you? What would you like to see more of?
To help our sport grow. I think you got to actually bring fighting back to fighting. It's not a game of tag. We're sparring. Now I get we're doing point sparring and it's not continuous or full contact or MMA. I get that, but it's still got to be some kind of element of fighting, right? Did I touch him? Did I not touch him? No, you're sparring. You kick him in the head, give him the point. Like actually kick him. Don't 4 inches or 5 inches or that hit maybe. And then I think you've got to actually have trained judges.
Yep.
And
it's got to be. It's got to.
You got to have trained judges, and this. It's not the whole like, oh, I want to see this person on stage fight this person on stage, so I'm going to make sure that somehow I work it out that these 2 people end up on stage. That's got to stop too.
Yeah, and I think some of that, because of the pandemic, we've started. And again, I'm going to go back to where we started. Our sponsor has kind of made it to where we can get that without having that, right? So we're having set fights and we're having pay-per-view events for that, which is a separate thing. And then you have your tournament, which is a separate thing. And there's 2 different styles, and I think hopefully we can get rid of some of that, that whole mindset. Well, I just want to see these people on stage. Okay. Well, we have this, let's set this up over here, this platform for that. And we have the term to see who can win it all. Who's the last person standing, No,
that would take our sport to a different level.
Yep.
Let's take Trevor Nash in his prime. If there was virtual fight tour, who do you want to fight? You get 3 rounds. Who do you want?
Do you want a show or do you want who I want to just fight? Because
the answer is yes.
Listen, I always thought Raymond and I were very good, entertaining fights. I always thought that. Listen, Zolt and I have a 1-on-1, so that's got to be broken. I want that other win over him. So yeah, I mean, I could probably go on, but exciting fight, I would think Ray and I.
Yeah. Awesome. All right, Casey, same question, but both with fighting and then forms of weapons, a head-to-head forms of weapons.
To compete against?
Yeah.
Oh Lord.
Like set. Like if it's you against.
There's so many though.
I know.
That's the hard part for you, Casey, is because you did it since the early 90s. So it's like, who do you pick?
Like so junior, I want Brian Roos because that was my goal before, and I never got him.
Brian Roos, you said?
He even fell down at the tournament and still beat me.
Right.
And I don't know how that happened, but it was in Tennessee, so whatever. I want that one. As an adult, I would want another shot at Ming and John Valera because because I think I got John once, and I think I only got Herb maybe once.
Yeah.
So I would want that again.
Love it.
I don't know what other divisions am I going?
Well, yeah. I mean, with weapons reforms, I think that would be it, right? Or is there someone in forms that you would like to you think you never really got a shot against or would like one?
Reforms? No. I
mean,
not that I was competing at the same time that I can't think of anybody that I would want another. Sparring wise, Nancy Price always had my number.
Okay.
Ooh, okay.
So I'd like another shot at that one.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah. Those people I would like to beat, but I'm aware of my abilities. So.
Well, we're taking you in your prime, like when you felt like you were at your best fighting.
Yeah.
You want them. Who is that person for you?
Yeah.
Nancy Price.
I think I want to fight Nancy.
Awesome.
Yeah, that's a good one.
That would be a great one. That would be great. Oh man, this is so much fun. We've had a lot of fun. I know we kind of probably we need to end the show, but man, thank you guys
I know I have so many more.
I have so many more. I know we could just and we could just get to stories, team stories of Trevor and I and Casey and I growing up. I mean, there's all kinds of crazy stuff.
I remember, hey, when we were at Stephanie Flowers' school, and that is my favorite story. I tell it all the time.
Yeah.
I know, but it's still fun. Come on. It made them laugh. We're good.
It was a fun week. Oh man.
I want to put a story now. Jesse, yes. Jesse's hitting it right now. Jesse's already got his ears.
Like, all right, let's do a virtual fight tour.
About a virtual fight tour. Trevor, you coming back for it?
For me to fight?
Yeah.
I'm old and fat now, man. No, I'm old.
One fight though. 3 rounds.
1 3-round match.
With who?
That's what I'm talking about.
That's what I mean. With who? Let's see. Why not, right?
I'm old and fat. I'm going to stay with that.
Oh man, this has been so much fun.
As long as we're just mentioning that, I have no regrets as to anything I've ever done. But one thing I really regret is you and I never really got a match that mattered against each other.
No, you're right. We didn't.
I really, really felt like your style, if I could test my skills against you, that would mean something. And we had a team fight where the match before that, there was a blowout till nothing mattered. And then we had a match which neither one of us were trying to win. That
was so bad. Because didn't we get yelled at by the judges?
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Listen. Yeah. So here's because there's like pictures where people were like, what the frick are these guys doing? So here's the story behind that. So I was like 8 rounds deep into one bracket. And this is at the Irish Open where each match is 2 2-minute rounds. And I'm talking to someone and they're like, dude, you're going to make it to the gold medal round of this one. Why don't you just bow out of the other round? And I'm like, oh man, my first match is against Trevor. I got to fight him. And they're like, listen, you're going to make the gold medal round. Just focus. So I'm like, all right, you're right. So I'll go to Trevor and I'm like, yo, I'm going to just bow out. And Trevor's like, no, I'm bowing out. I'm like, no. What are you talking about? I only want to be here for the open weight. I'm sweating. So then they wouldn't let you bow out.
Yeah.
So now we got to
They threatened me not to do. I wasn't going to be allowed to do open weight if I bowed out.
Right. So now we got to stage this fight where neither one of us is trying to be in. And we're just kind of going through it looks horrendous. And the ref at one point, he's a Hungarian ref. He stops us both and he's like, what is this? And we're like, you guys are staging this, super pissed. And neither one of us wanted any parts of being there.
Yeah. There was like front kicks being thrown. It was not pretty. Yeah.
No, here's what happened. At one point, you were like, you blitzed with like a back fist. You're like, all right, here, just go ahead and punch. But you still couldn't help your reflexes. Even when you saw the kick coming, you still blocked. Like, this whole thing was horrible.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Yeah.
Dude, too many great stories. This is what's so much fun about this, man. And yeah, I mean, just like the last time I went up to Canada to visit with you guys, I mean, I could have spent 2 weeks up there just talking stories. Just so much fun. Thank you guys so much, not just for joining us on the show, but for me personally, what you guys have done for my career, the support and everything. Thank you guys so much for that. And just also with, always sending your team and your students to my tournament when I had one. And just thank you guys for that so much. So really,
Jeff, you're a big part of this. You're a big part of the karate world. And I thank you, because a lot of my students look up to you. Alex, same for you, man. Like, you're a big part of the karate world. You're out there and you're promoting karate, where I'm not. I'm back just teaching karate. So you guys are taking karate to a new step, and you're getting it out to new people, and you're getting, so as another martial artist, I respect and appreciate you guys are doing. So thank you.
Awesome, man. Thank you so much.
What kind of endorsement is that? That's fantastic.
I know.
Well, hey,
right?
I hope this is only the first time you guys come on inside.
Yes, we need to do more.
I will only come back on if we get to tell stories.
Oh yeah,
I want a story time.
Yes, we will make that work. Yes.
Okay.
All right.
Charge admission for that.
All right, Alex.
See, on that note, that's why we had to have a 2-episode show for Conroy, because as we all know, his stories go on for days.
Yeah.
Right, which is what we had. So yes, I would buckle up for story time.
Oh man.
This has been another episode of Inside Scoop with Alex and Jeff. I'm Alex Dingman.
I'm Jeff Doss. Thank you guys. See you next week.
Thanks, guys.